1. Dawn on the steppe. You wake to the sound of sheep bells as frost glints on your felt gear. Hey guys, tonight we're heading to the vast Mongolian steppe, where the wind hums through the grass like a lullaby, and the horizon stretches so wide it could swallow your worries whole. You're not a tourist here, you're a 13th century herder. Waking up in a felt-covered gear, as the first pale light of dawn seeps through the smoke hole, the air is crisp, biting at your nose, and the ground beneath your sheepskin blanket is hard, but familiar. Outside, the sheep bells clink softly, a sound so constant, it is practically your heartbeat. Now, let us be honest, you probably wouldn't last a full day out here. The steppe doesn't care about your Wi-Fi signal or your latte preferences. But that's why we're drifting into this slowly, letting the rhythm of nomadic life pull you under like a gentle current. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Nothing like imagining a scattered audience of half-asleep history lovers, all wrapped in blankets across different time zones. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. You blink awake to the sound of sheep bells, not the frantic jingling of panic, but the slow, contented clatter of animals shuffling in the frost. The inside of your gear is dark except for the faint glow of last night's embers, still clinging to life in the central hearth. You exhale, watching your breath curl in the cold air. No snooze button here, no alarm clocks, just the unspoken rule of the steppe. When the sheep stir, you stir. You push aside the heavy wool blanket handmade of course, because nothing goes to waste, and sit up. The floor is packed earth, covered in felt rugs that do little to soften the reality of mornings at this latitude. But you were used to it. Your knees crack as you stand, and you take a second to stretch, listening to the distant bleats outside. Historians still argue whether Mongol herders actually enjoyed their pre-dawn routines, or just tolerated them with stoic resignation. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some accounts suggest they deliberately sleep with their boots on to avoid the agony of icy leather in the morning. Practical, yes. Comfortable, debatable. You duck through the low door of the gear, squinting against the pale light. The steppe stretches out in every direction, endless and empty, except for your flock, already nibbling at the frosted grass. The sheep don't need instructions. They know the drill. Your job isn't to command them, it's to follow. 2. Milk morning rituals. Fermented mare's milk isn't your Starbucks, but it's breakfast, the first order of business. Breakfast. But forget avocado toast or cereal. Your morning meal comes from a leather pouch hanging near the door, swollen with its fizzy, pungent contents. Arag, fermented mare's milk. You take a deep breath before untying the stopper. That first whiff is always an adventure, like someone left yogurt in the sun and then kicked it. You take a sip, letting the sour temps wake up your tongue. It's an acquired taste. But after years, on the steppe, your gut flora wouldn't recognize a cow's milk latte if it hit them with a wooden spoon. The stuff is practically liquid gold out here, packed with probiotics, hydrating, and capable of lasting months without refrigeration. Modern health gurus would lose their minds if they knew. As you drink, you watch the horizon blush pink. The sheep barely glance up from their grazing. They know the routine. Eat, wander, repeat. No meetings, no emails, just the slow rhythm of grass between teeth. You envy them sometimes. Historians still argue whether the Mongols actually liked arag or just pretended to, because it was useful. But here's a fun fact. Some warriors allegedly carried frozen arag in their saddlebags as emergency rations. Imagine thawing out a centuries-old energy drink mid-battle. You finish your breakfast and wipe your mouth with the back of your hand. No napkins out here, just the wind, ready to lick your fingers clean. 3. Sheep whispering 101. Your flock knows the land better than you ever will. The sheep are already moving, their bells creating a slow, hypnotic rhythm as they fan out across the grassland. You don't so much heard them as gently nudge their collective consciousness, like a teacher supervising recess rather than a dictator, giving orders. They know where the good grass grows, where the streams run clearest, even where to step to avoid sinking into hidden mud pits. You readjust there to make sure none of them gets too creative with their wandering. Your horse waits nearby, lazily swishing its tail. Mongol horses aren't the majestic stallions of European paintings. They shaggy, barrel-chested, and built like tanks. They can go for days on sparse grazing, and recover from injuries that would kill fancier breeds. You swing onto its back without a saddle. Who has time for that this early? And let it fall into step beside the flock. The rhythm of its gait is so familiar you could probably sleep upright. And sometimes, when the days are long and the sun is warm, you do. Historians still argue whether the Mongols trained their horses or if the horses trained the Mongols. But here's a quirky detail. Some herders would sing or hum to their flocks while riding, believing it kept the animals calm. Imagine explaining that at a modern corporate team-building retreat. Yes, Karen, I do hum. 2. The spreadsheets. It improves morale. The morning passes in a haze of grass and wind. The sheep stop occasionally to nibble at a particularly tasty patch, and you let them. Time isn't a currency here at S. Just something that happens. Like weather. 4. The JR's secret geometry, while you're round home, is a masterpiece of engineering. The sun climbs higher, warming your shoulders as you guide the flock toward a shallow depression in the land nature's perfect windbreak. This is where you pause for midday, letting the animals rest while you tend to the portable masterpiece you call home, the guar. You slide off your horse with a grunt, knees protesting after hours in the saddle. The structure seems impossibly light as you begin dismantling it. Felt panels loosened, lattice walls folded like an elaborate puzzle. Yet this humble bundle of wool and wood holds secrets that baffled medieval travelers. Marco Polo himself marveled at how these tents could withstand blizzards that toppled stone buildings. The genius is in the curves. No harsh angles means no weak points for wind to exploit, just smooth resistance like a stone in a river. A gust kicks up as if to prove the point, whistling harmlessly around the collapsing frame. You smirk. Centuries later, engineers would discover aerodynamic principles your people baked into everyday life. Historians still argue whether the Gera's circular design was intentional genius or happy accident. But here's a tidbit they don't teach in architecture school. The best felt makers would sometimes mix mare's milk into the wool during processing. The lactic acid acted as a natural preservative, an ancient version of waterproofing spray. You finish packing just as the lead sheep lifts its head, sensing the coming movement. Time flows differently here, measured in animal instincts and sunlight, rather than clock hands. The gear will rise again elsewhere tonight, same as it has for generations, same as it will for generations more. 5. Lunch. A handful of curds snacking like a nomad means no refrigerators, no problem. The sun reaches its peak as you settle onto a sun-warmed rock, pulling a small leather pouch from your belt. Lunch, isn't. A meal here a handful of dried curds that taste like someone left cheese in a saddlebag for 3 months because, well, that's exactly what happened. You pop one into your mouth and let the sharp, tangy flavor wake up your tongue. It's not gourmet, but it is lightweight, lasts forever, and gives you enough energy to keep up with the flock. Modern protein bars wish they were this efficient. As you chew, you watch a marmot pop its head from a nearby burrow, nose twitching at the scent of your snack. You toss a crumb its way not out of kindness, but practicality. These little creatures are nature's alarm system. Their sudden silence is the first warning of approaching wolves. Keep them happy, and they'll keep you informed. Historians still argue whether nomadic herders actually enjoyed their rock-hard dairy snacks or just tolerated them for survival. But here's a fun fact. Genghis Khan's armies reportedly carried similar provisions, using the dried curds as emergency rations during campaigns. Some scholars believe this simple food helped fuel the Mongol Empire's lightning-fast conquests, proof that sometimes history hinges on something as humble as a cheese cube. The sheep barely notice your pause, their jaws working methodically. As they graze, you take a swig of arog from your water skin, the fermented bite cutting through the curd's richness. In the distance, an eagle circles, not hunting, just riding the thermals in lazy loops. Time stretches like the shadows around you, slow and unhurried. There's no clock to punch, no deadline to meet. Just the sun's arc, the grass's yield, and the knowledge that tomorrow will be much the same. 6. Horseback nap time. Yes, you can doze off while herding just on fall. The afternoon sun drapes across your shoulders like a heavy blanket as your horse finds its rhythm, that slow, swaying gait perfect for dozing. Your eyelids grow heavy as the steady clop of hooves blends with distant sheep bells into nature's perfect lullaby. You've mastered the art of the saddle nap. Back straight, knees loose, hands resting on your thighs just so. It's a skill born of necessity when days stretch from dawn till dusk in the saddle. You learn to sleep anywhere. A sudden dip nearly sends you lurching forward, but your body corrects before your mind fully wakes. The horse knows the way better than you do anyway. Mongol horses are living GPS systems. They'll follow the flock, avoid bad footing, and stop. If something mess wrong, you've heard stories of warriors sleeping through entire marches, their mounts carrying them faithfully across the steppe. Historians still argue whether these saddle naps were truly restful or just desperate survival tactics. But here's an odd detail. Some herders would tie their reins to the saddle horn in a special knot before napping, not to steer, but so the horse could yank them awake if needed. Ancient autopilot with a safety feature. You blink awake to find the flock has stopped at a stream. The horse stands patiently, having known exactly when to halt. As you dismount, your knees protest sleeping upright. Isn't exactly ergonomic, but the sun's golden light tells you it is worth it. There are still hours of daylight left, but time feels suspended here, like the entire steppe exists in one long, drowsy afternoon. 7. The art of felt making. Stomping wool into waterproof fabric is oddly satisfying. As evening approaches, you kneel beside a growing pile of raw wool today's final chore before darkness falls. This isn't the fluffy, cleaned wool you buy in stores today. It's matted with dirt and grass, still carrying the sharp animal scent of sheep. You begin the rhythmic process of felting, sprinkling water across the fibers as you roll them tightly between your palms. It's mindless work, the kind that lets your thoughts wander as your hands move on muscle memory alone. The real magic comes next. You bundle the wool between two mats and begin stomping slow at first, then building to a steady, almost dance-like tempo. This is how nomads turn fluff into fabric, not with looms or factories, but with gravity and sweat. Hours of compression will transform this mess into weatherproof felt, dense enough to turn away rain and blizzard winds alike. Modern outdoor gear companies spend millions developing high-tech fabrics, but your people cracked the code centuries. I'll go with nothing but wool and footwork. Historians still argue whether felting was first discovered by accident, perhaps from wool matting and saddlebags, or developed intentionally. But here's a quirky aside. Some herders believed the best felt came from wool gathered in spring, when sheep rubbed off their winter coats on bushes. They deliberately place rough-barked shrubs along grazing routes to create natural wool collection points. Early recycling at its finest. As the last light fades, you examine your handiwork, a dense, slightly lumpy rectangle that will soon become part of a new gear covering. It's not pretty, but it's warm, waterproof, and made entirely from materials the steppe provides. You dust off your knees, satisfied. Tomorrow's work is already calling, but for now, there's dinner to consider, and the deep, dreamless sleep that follows a day spent working with your hands. 8. Sunset wolf alarms. How to scare predators without raising your voice. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples as you finish securing the flock for the night. Suddenly, a ripple of tension passes through the sheep heads, lifting, ears twitching in unison. Then you hear it too, the distant, haunting howl of wolves. But you don't reach for a weapon. Instead, you grab a long stick and begin rhythmically tapping it against your leather boot. The sound echoes oddly across the plains, sharp and artificial compared to nature's noises. Within moments, the howling stops. You keep tapping for good measure. This is the nomad's secret. Wolves fear unfamiliar sounds more than shouts or fire. Your ancestors learned that consistent, unnatural noises, a stick on leather, metal clanging against rock, work better than confrontation. Why risk a fight when you can weaponize curiosity? You settle by the fire, listening. The sheep gradually relax, their nervous bleats fading. In the distance, an answering howl rises, but it's moving away now. Crisis averted without a single arrow fired. Historians still argue whether this technique worked because wolves genuinely feared strange sounds, or simply couldn't be bothered to investigate. But here's an odd footnote. Some herders would deliberately train wolf packs by consistently using the same noise deterrent, creating generations of wolves conditioned to avoid human camps. Early behavioral psychology at work. As the stars emerge, you toss another dried dung patty on the fire, the steppe's version of firewood. The flames hiss softly, casting flickering shadows on your gear. Somewhere out there, the wolves are still hunting, just not here, not tonight. 9. Stargazing without maps. You navigate by myths, not constellations. With the wolves safely distant, you tilt your head back to face the endless expanse of stars. There's no light pollution here, just the Milky Way stretching across the sky like spilled milk on black felt. But you're not looking for constellations as a Greek astronomer might. These stars tell different stories. That cluster is a lost lamb. Those 3 bright ones mark the hoofprint of a celestial horse. And that hazy patch, that S where the sky herds drink from an infinite river, you trace patterns with your finger, recounting tales passed down through generations. There's no Big Dipper here instead. Those 7 stars form the drinking horse. Its nose dipped eternally toward the horizon. The stories aren't just myths. They re practical navigation tools. When the drinking horse's front hooves touch the earth, it's time to move the flock south. When its back arches high, spring grazing begins. Historians still argue whether these celestial stories were purely utilitarian or held deeper spiritual meaning. But here's a fascinating tidbit. Some Mongol scouts could reportedly navigate featureless terrain at night by licking their thumbs and holding them up to sense star-chilled winds, an early form of celestial orientation that baffled their enemies. A shooting star streaks across the sky, and you make no wish. Out here, stars aren't for dreaming, they read the oldest map there is. The night stretches on, silent except for the occasional bleat of a sheep and the crackle of the dung fire. You'll sleep soon, but for now, there's comfort in knowing these same stars guided your ancestors, and will guide your children, long after your gear has returned to the earth. 10. Dinner. Boiled mutton diplomacy. Sharing a single knife teaches patience. The fire's embers glow faintly as you gather around the communal pot with 3 other herders. Tonight's dinner is a single massive chunk of mutton boiling in its own fat, seasoned with nothing but the occasional pinch of wild onions someone foraged. There are no plates, no individual servings, just one knife passed between you, each taking turns sawing off a steaming piece directly from the bone. It's messy, inefficient, and somehow perfect. As you wait your turn, the knife moves clockwise, always clockwise, following the sun's path, a tradition so ingrained, no one questions it. The herder to your left wipes the blade on his sleeve before handing it over. Table manners here have nothing to do with napkins, and everything to do with patience. Rush the knife, and you'll be chewing gristle all night. Wait your turn, and you might get the prized piece near the bone. Historians still argue whether this communal eating strengthened social bonds, or simply reflected a lack of cutlery. But here's an odd fact. Some Mongol warriors were said to carry personalized knives with distinctive notches, not for fighting, but to claim their fair share of meat during campaigns. Early portion control, at its most literal. The fatty broth coats your fingers as you finally take your portion, the rich flavor exploding against your salt-starved tongue. Conversation drifts between mouthfuls, talk of grazing roots, a lame horse, rumors of distant traders. No one hurries. The pot will simmer until the last scrap is gone, the bones boiled white and cracked for marrow. Tomorrow's breakfast might be the same meat reheated, but out here, no one complains about leftovers. 11. The secret life of Bactrian camels. They grumpier and smarter than you think. Morning brings the grumbling complaints of your back camels, a sound like someone trying to start a chainsaw underwater. These grumpy giants are your winter lifeline, able to plow through snowdrifts that would bury your sheep. You approach the largest male cautiously. He's already eyeing you with the disdain only a camel can muster. One wrong move and you'll get the full experience. Spitting, biting, and that special camel specialty, groaning like a haunted house door as they collapse dramatically to the ground. But you know the trick. You offer not the fresh grass he expects, but a withered branch. His prehensile lips curl around it instantly. Camels will chew anything from thorn bushes to old leather straps. As he munches, you quickly check his hump. A firm, fat-filled hump means he's ready for winter. A sagging one spells trouble. This guy's is plump as a ripe melon. Good historians still argue whether Bactrian camels were truly domesticated or just tolerated humans for food. But here's a fun fact. Camel caravans could allegedly smell water sources from miles away, leading some herders to simply follow their camels during droughts. The original GPS had bad breath and a worse attitude. The camel finishes his branch and immediately groans, flopping down to demand a back scratch. You oblige grudgingly. These temperamental beasts may be the reason your people survive the brutal winters, but that doesn't make them any less obnoxious. As you scratch, he leans into it like an overgrown cat, proving that even the grumpiest creatures have their soft spots. 12. Midnight thunderstorm survival. Why your guarantee collapse in a downpour. A distant rumble rolls across the steppe, not thunder, but something far more dangerous. The drumbeat of approaching hooves. Your hand instinctively goes to the knife at your belt. But then you recognize the pattern. 3 riders crest the nearby hill, their horses lathered but moving with purpose. Postal couriers. The original instant messaging system. You step forward as the lead rider dismounts in one fluid motion, his horse immediately lowering its head. 2 graze. No rest for the messengers, but their mounts know the drill. The courier pulls a leather tube from his belt inside, a tightly rolled scrap of parchment covered in spidery Uyghur script. You can read it literacy ISNT, exactly a herding skill. But the rider summarizes between gulps of airag, new grazing restrictions near pass it on. This is how news travels across an empire, not by shouting into the void, but through a relay system so efficient it puts modern logistics to shame. Fresh horses every 20 miles, way stations stocked with supplies, and riders who could cover 200 miles in a day, if the message was urgent enough. Marco Polo would later describe it with awe, but to you, it is just Tuesday. Historians still argue whether the YAM system was primarily for military orders or civilian use. But here's a quirky detail. Some couriers allegedly placed pebbles in their mouths to stimulate saliva during long rides, an early attempt at combating dehydration that probably just resulted in a lot of spit-covered rocks. As the riders remount and disappear toward the horizon, you turn back to your flock. The message will ripple across a steppe faster than any wolf runs, changing grazing patterns for hundreds of families. Out here, information, ISNT, just power, it's survival. 13. The forgotten postal system? Hayudi, send a letter across continents. The afternoon stretches before you like the endless steppe itself. No urgent chores, no predators to chase off, just the rare luxury of unstructured time. You settle cross-legged outside your ger with a pile of worn leather strips across your lap. Saddle repairs might not sound relaxing, but there's a meditative quality to threading sinew through leather, each stitch pulling tight with satisfying precision. This is how you mend more than equipment. It's how you mend your patience after days spent herding stubborn sheep and moody camels. Nearby, an elderly herder from a neighboring family works on his own project, occasionally offering commentary between stitches. His hands move slowly but with unshakable certainty, the way only 80 years of practice can teach. The conversation drifts from saddle techniques to whether wolves think like humans. He insists they do. To that time his grandfather met a Persian merchant who claimed the earth was round. You laugh at the absurdity. Everyone knows it. S-flat. Like a saddle blanket, obviously, but the debate continues amiably for hours. Historians still argue whether these casual philosophical debates were common, or just the privilege of slow afternoons. But here, as an overlooked fact, some herders would deliberately repair gear in communal areas, turning mundane maintenance into impromptu social gatherings. The original water cooler talk happened over horse tack and fermented milk. As the sun begins its descent, you tie off the final stitch with a satisfied nod. The saddle won't win any beauty contests, but it'll last another season. More importantly, your mind feels lighter, proof that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is sit, stitch, and argue about the shape of the world with someone who has seen more of it than you. 14. A nomad's day off repairing saddles and debating philosophy with travelers. The wind carries whispers of change tonight, a crispness that wasn't there yesterday. A sharper bite to the air as you pull your deal tighter around your shoulders. Winter is coming, and with it, the annual decision. Stay and brave the snowdrifts, or join the migration south. You gaze at your flock, mentally calculating their condition. The sheep are fat from autumn grazing, their wool thickening daily. The horses' coats grow shaggier by the week. Even the camels seem more opinionated than usual, which is really saying something. You scoop a handful of dirt and let it trickle through your fingers, watching how the wind carries it. Your ancestors developed this simple test: fine particles. Blowing steadily means stable weather. Erratic gusts foretell storms. Tonight, dirt dances unpredictably. Not a good sign. Historians still argue whether these migrations followed strict routes or adapted yearly based on conditions. But here, as a practical tidbit, herders would sometimes deliberately overgraze certain areas in late autumn, not from carelessness, but to encourage specific plants to regrow lush by spring. Early rotational grazing before it had a name. A distant eagle's cry splits the air as you make your decision. South it is. You'll start packing tomorrow. For now, there's one last quiet night ahead. The stars bright and cold overhead. The earth humming with the knowledge of coming change. 15 echoes of the eternal blue sky. Why silence is the ultimate luxury. The fire burns low as you sit in perfect stillness, listening to a sound so rare it feels sacred. Absolute silence. No sheep bells, no camel grumbles, not even the usual whisper of wind through grass. Just the occasional crackle of dying embers, and the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing. This is the steppe's greatest gift, a silence so deep it echoes. You tilt your head back, gazing at the infinite stars. Somewhere out there, other herders are doing the same, sharing this quiet across the darkness. The same stars that guided your ancestors now guide you, and will guide your children long after your bones have returned to the earth. There is comfort in that continuity, in knowing your place in this unbroken chain. Historians will never truly capture this feeling, the weightless peace of existing between earth and sky, the profound simplicity of a life measured in seasons rather than years. But perhaps that's for the best. Some things are meant to be lived, not studied. The embers fade as your eyelids grow heavy. Tomorrow will bring movement, decisions, the endless work of survival. Tonight there is only this perfect, fleeting silence, the eternal blue sky holding its breath with you. Wind down as the last embers fade to ash. Let the stillness settle over you like a well-worn blanket. Picture the vast Mongolian steppe not as a harsh wilderness, but as a gently rolling sea of grass, cradling you in its timeless rhythm. The sheep are sleeping, the camels content, the horses standing guard as they have for centuries. Breathe deeply, matching your breaths to the imagined cadence of distant sheep bells. In and out, in and out. Each exhale carrying away tension, each inhale drawing in the peace of this ancient landscape. The stars above are the same ones that guided generations before you, and will guide generations after. There is comfort in that continuity, in knowing you reap part of something greater. No need to hold on to thoughts now. Let them drift like dandelion seeds on the breeze. As sleep approaches, imagine the gentle sway of a horse's gait, the soft rustle of felt in the wind, the distant howl of a wolf. That means you no harm. You are safe. You are at peace. The steppe watches over you tonight, as it has watched over countless dreamers before. Let go now, and drift into dreams of endless blue skies.